The mess hall of the starship Isaac Newton hummed with activity. The year 2372 marked the height of interstellar cooperation, yet tensions simmered beneath the surface of multicultural pleasantries. Lieutenant Marcus Holt leaned against the wall, nursing a synthetic coffee, as he observed the crowd. His security officer's eye caught every detail the Centaurian ambassador's left antenna, twitching nervously as he spoke with a human diplomat, the Galatian twins who always sat precisely 7 meters apart, due to their telepathic resonance, and the striking figure of Solara, their Vrylan translator, who had just entered the hall. Marcus watched as she glided through the room, her pale green skin luminescent under the soft lighting. Silver hair cascaded down her back in an intricate braid, and those violet eyes seemed to take in everything at once. As always, she wore thin gloves that covered her hands entirely, and the translator collar that supposedly helped her communicate complex human idioms. "Lieutenant, mind if I join you?" Solara's melodic voice pulled him from his observations. "Please," Marcus gestured to the empty seat across from him. He'd always been fascinated by Solara since she'd come aboard 3 months ago. There was something about her that didn't quite align with the official Vrylan cultural ambassador briefing he'd read. "The synthesized protein today is surprisingly palatable," she remarked, arranging her food with meticulous precision. Marcus noticed how she pushed the synth bread to the side, barely concealing her distaste. "Not a fan of our bread substitutes?" he asked casually, watching her reaction. Solara's violet eyes flickered up to meet his. "On Vrylan, our grain-based foods are significantly different in texture. I find your version challenging to appreciate." Marcus nodded, filing away this detail. "But you seem quite taken with that spice blend." He gestured to the small container she'd brought with her, something not from the ship's replicators. Her fingers tightened momentarily around the container. "A small comfort from home. Our sensory perception differs from humans. What you might find mild, we often experience as bland." Before Marcus could probe further, the ship's loudspeaker crackled to life. "Attention all personnel, we will be receiving a high-value passenger transport in Bay 4 at 0800 hours tomorrow. Security Detail Alpha report for briefing at 1900 hours. Marcus didn't miss how Solara's shoulders tensed, a flash of what looked like fear crossing her features before she composed herself. The spice container she'd been holding clattered against her tray. "You all right?" Marcus asked. "Yes, of course," she replied too quickly. Just startled by the announcement, she glanced at her wrist device. "I should prepare for the afternoon diplomatic communications. The Arcturan delegation can be particular about protocol." As she rose to leave, Marcus noticed something he hadn't seen before: the edge of what appeared to be a tattoo peeking out from beneath her glove as she reached for her tray. Intricate, metallic, and definitely not mentioned in any cultural briefing on Vrylan body art. "Solara," he called as she turned away. "The security briefing tonight, any insights on our VIP passenger I should know about?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm afraid I'm as uninformed as you are, Lieutenant. Safe shifts." With that, she was gone, leaving Marcus with more questions than answers. Over the next few days, Marcus found himself paying closer attention to Solara. There were subtle inconsistencies in her behavior, the way she sometimes hesitated before using her translator collar, how she would occasionally mouth words silently before speaking, as if rehearsing unfamiliar phrases. It was on the 4th day after the announcement that Marcus found himself in the secondary cargo bay during Gamma shift, ostensibly checking security protocols. In reality, he was following a hunch. Solara had been seen in this area 3 times outside her normal rotation, according to the ship's log. The cavernous bay was dimly lit with only emergency lighting active during the nighttime cycle. Rows of containers cast long shadows, and the distant hum of the ship's engines provided a constant background noise. Marcus moved quietly, his security officer training allowing him to blend with the shadows. A soft voice echoed from behind a stack of diplomatic cargo, bound for the Centauri system. Marcus froze, recognizing Solara's tones, but not the language. It certainly wasn't standard, nor was it the formal Vrylan dialect he'd heard in official transmissions. This was something else more fluid with musical inflections that resonated oddly in the cargo bay's acoustics. Solara was speaking rapidly, clearly frustrated, her voice occasionally rising before dropping to hushed tones again. Marcus edged closer, careful to stay hidden. Metha Veshna Risul Ponthar Ekthalanev. She broke off suddenly, and Marcus heard what sounded like a small device being shut down. This is pointless, she muttered in perfect, unaccented standard, without the aid of her translator collar. Marcus retreated silently, making his way back to the security hub. His mind raced with possibilities. During his next shift, he accessed the Alliance roster database security clearance, allowing him limited access to diplomatic personnel records. He entered Solara and Vrylan into the search parameters. The system hummed, then displayed no matches found. Frowning, Marcus refined his search, looking for any Vrylan cultural liaisons assigned to Alliance vessels within the past year. 3 names appeared. None were Solara. On a hunch, he accessed the visual recognition system and uploaded an image of the partial tattoo he'd glimpsed on Solara's wrist. He cross-referenced it with known symbolic insignias from the Vrylan system. The computer worked for several seconds before displaying a single match: House of Telesrin, royal lineage, restricted access. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He was about to access the restricted files when a notification appeared on his screen: Security override initiated. User access terminated. Someone had detected his search and shut it down remotely. Marcus quickly cleared his station and logged out, mind racing. The pieces were falling into place. Solara was not who she claimed to be. The next day, Marcus found Solara alone by the replicator station in the mess hall. He approached casually, coffee cup in hand, positioning himself between her and the exit. "Good morning, Your Highness," he said quietly. The effect was immediate. Solara's tray wobbled in her hands, her violet eyes widening before narrowing to slits. "I don't know what you're talking about, Lieutenant," she replied, her voice steady despite her physical reaction. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. "House of Telesrin, the royal lineage of the Vrylan Collective. That's what your wrist tattoo indicates, doesn't it? You're not a cultural liaison, you're royalty." Solara's composure cracked for just a moment before she regained control. "This is neither the time nor place for such absurd allegations," she hissed, attempting to move past him. Marcus shifted slightly, not enough to appear threatening, but sufficient to block her path. "There is no Solara registered as a Vrylan translator on any Alliance vessel. So who are you really? And why are you hiding on a mid-level transport ship?" For a long moment, Solara simply stared at him, calculation evident in her gaze. Finally, she leaned in her voice, dropping to a whisper that sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. "You know who I am. Come to my quarters tonight, 1 hour, no witnesses, and I will pay you to keep my secret." Her violet eyes held his intense and unreadable. Deck 7, Suite 12, 2200 hours. Before Marcus could respond, she slipped past him and was gone, leaving him standing alone by the replicator, torn between duty and curiosity, and something darker stirring in his chest that he wasn't quite ready to acknowledge. For the remainder of his shift, Marcus debated his next move. The professional security officer in him knew he should report this directly to Commander Vega, his superior. Harboring royalty under false pretenses was a serious diplomatic incident waiting to happen. Yet something held him back, the fear in Solara's eyes perhaps, or the mystery that surrounded her presence. At 2200 hours precisely, Marcus stood outside Deck 7, Suite 12. He had come in full uniform, a deliberate choice to remind both himself and Solara of his position and responsibilities. He pressed the door chime. The door slid open to reveal a dimly lit room, the standard quarters transformed by what appeared to be personal items from Vrylan tapestries, in deep blues and purples, crystalline structures that emitted a soft glow, and the subtle scent of something like cinnamon and ozone. Solara stood in the center of the room, but she was barely recognizable. Gone was the reserved translator with her modest attire. Before him stood a woman of unmistakable regal bearing. Her pale green skin now displayed intricate golden markings that followed the contours of her face and disappeared beneath a gown of flowing silver material. The translator collar was absent, revealing a slender neck, adorned with what appeared to be living jewelry, small crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. "Lieutenant Holt," she said, her voice richer without the translator's modulation. "I appreciate your discretion in coming here." Marcus remained by the door, maintaining a professional distance. "I haven't agreed to any discretion yet. I still don't know who you really are or why you're posing as a translator." Solara gestured to a seating area. "Please, what I have to tell you cannot be overheard by ship sensors." Cautiously, Marcus followed her and sat opposite a low table made of some material that seemed to shift colors as the light hit it. Solara touched a small device on the table, and a subtle hum filled the air. "Dampening field," she explained. "Now we can speak freely, without the ship's systems recording us." "That's highly illegal tech on an Alliance vessel," Marcus noted, though he made no move to report it. "As is much of what I'm about to tell you," Solara's violet eyes held his. "My real name is Solara Telvek Nasrin, first daughter of the House of Talasrin, and heir to the Vrylan Collective." "Why is the heir to an entire world traveling incognito on a mid-range Alliance transport?" Solara's expression darkened. "Because our sun is dying, Lieutenant. Far faster than our public scientific reports indicate." Marcus frowned. "The Alliance is aware of Ryland's stellar instability. There's already a joint evacuation plan in development." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Is that what they're calling it? An evacuation plan?" "Let me tell you what your Alliance has actually offered, Lieutenant. They will evacuate 5,000 of our people. 5,000 out of billions." The number hit Marcus like a physical blow. "That can't be right. The Alliance Charter requires maximum feasible assistance in planetary emergencies." "Yes, I'm familiar with your charter. And your diplomats have determined that 5,000 is the maximum feasible number, based on available resources and the complex logistics of interstellar evacuation." Her voice dripped with contempt. 5,000 chosen by genetic diversity algorithms to preserve our species in what amounts to a living museum. Marcus leaned forward. "I don't understand. Why wouldn't the Alliance Council authorize a full evacuation? We have the fleet capacity." "Politics, Lieutenant. The Vrylan Collective controls access to the only known deposits of quantum-stabilized Nevidium in the quadrant, essential for next-generation warp technology. With our planet gone, and most of our people conveniently eliminated, the Alliance gains direct mining rights under the Extinction Sovereignty Clause." The accusation was so outrageous that Marcus almost laughed until he saw the deadly seriousness in Solara's eyes. "That's," he began. "Genocide through bureaucratic neglect," she finished for him. "Made palatable through technical jargon and resource allocation matrices." Before Marcus could respond, his comm unit chirped. He glanced down to see a coded message from Commander Vega, Monitor Solara. "Report, any deviation. Priority Alpha." The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Someone knew he was here, knew he had discovered something. His expression must have betrayed his thoughts, because Solara's posture immediately tensed. "What is it?" she asked. Marcus made a split-second decision. He showed her the message. Solara's eyes widened. "They know. Perhaps not everything, but enough." She began pacing the silver material of her gown, rippling like mercury. "I need to reach the quantum comms array. Tonight. The QCA is off limits to all but command staff and communications officers," Marcus said automatically. "I need to contact my handmaid at the Vrylan Embassy. She has access to our royal communication channels, direct links to our scientists working on alternative evacuation methods. If I can't get word to her before the VIP shuttle arrives tomorrow." She left the sentence unfinished. The VIP, Marcus realized. They're coming for you. Solara nodded. Ambassador Krell. Officially to discuss trade negotiations. Unofficially to escort me back to Vryland for my protection during this crisis. Once I'm back in the royal compound, I'll be effectively silenced. Marcus stood military training kicking in as he assessed options. The QCA is guarded around the clock. You'd need a level 9 security clearance to even approach it. Which you have, Solara pointed out. Using my clearance to grant unauthorized access would end my career at best, earn me a prison sentence at worst. Solara stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could see the golden markings on her skin pulse subtly with her heartbeat. And what is your career worth against billions of lives, Lieutenant? The question hung in the air between them. Marcus found himself noticing details. He shouldn't be focusing on the way her silver hair caught the light, the subtle warmth radiating from her skin, the scent that reminded him of distant thunderstorms. I could create a diversion, he heard himself saying. A security alert in hydroponics. It would draw attention away from the communications deck for maybe 5 minutes. He was already calculating angles, timing security rotations. Hope bloomed on Solara's face. 5 minutes would be enough. The message is already encoded. I just need to establish the quantum link. If we're caught, we won't be, she said with such certainty that Marcus almost believed her. My people have a saying, Sethu Vanel Tar Moresh, the darkest night reveals the brightest stars. Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding, a connection that transcended their different species, and the impossible situation they found themselves in. Marcus felt drawn to her, not just by her ethereal beauty, but by her fierce determination, her willingness to risk everything for her people. He caught himself leaning slightly toward her, the professional distance he'd maintained beginning to evaporate. Solara seemed to sense it too, her violet eyes widening slightly, before she took a deliberate step back. We should prepare, she said, her voice taking on a more practical tone. The hydroponics alert needs to seem legitimate without causing actual damage to the systems. Marcus nodded, grateful for the shift to tactical planning. I can program a false containment breach in one of the experimental growing chambers. It won't harm the plants, but security protocol will require a full evacuation and investigation. As they worked together, plotting the details of their plan, Marcus found himself repeatedly drawn to Solara's presence. In close quarters, he noticed her natural warmth. Vrylands ran several degrees hotter than humans. Something about their unique biology that allowed them to thrive on their cooler homeworld. The golden markings on her skin seemed to pulse more vibrantly when she was excited or focused, creating patterns that drew the eye. At one point, as they leaned over a schematic of the communications deck that Marcus had pulled up on his secure pad, their hands brushed. The contact sent an unexpected charge through him, and when he looked up, Solara was watching him with an expression that mirrored his own surprise. For a breathless moment, they remained frozen faces, inches apart. The ship's alert system chose that exact moment to sound the standard end-of-gamma shift notification blaring through the quarters. They pulled apart the moment broken. Tomorrow, then, Solara said, composing herself. After second meal, when the hydroponics lab is least staffed. Marcus nodded suddenly, all business again. I'll create the alert at exactly 14:27 hours. That gives you exactly 4 minutes and 50 seconds to establish your link before security protocol cycle, and the system flags the anomaly. As he turned to leave, Solara called out, Lieutenant. When he looked back, she asked, Why are you helping me? You don't know me. You have no reason to trust what I've told you. Marcus considered the question carefully. I've spent my career following orders, trusting the system to be just and fair. But I've seen enough to know that systems can fail. People can fail. He met her gaze steadily. Sometimes, you have to trust your instincts instead. Mine tell me you're telling the truth. A soft smile curved her lips. Among my people, such instinct is considered a rare gift. We call it Veshanar, the knowing without knowing. On Earth, we just call it a gut feeling, Marcus replied with a hint of a smile. Get some rest, Your Highness. Tomorrow will test us both. The next day unfolded with excruciating normalcy. Marcus went through his security rounds, filed reports, and attended the morning briefing where Commander Vega announced the imminent arrival of Ambassador Krell's diplomatic shuttle. Throughout it all, his mind raced with their plans, searching for flaws or oversights. At precisely 14:27 hours, Marcus was positioned at a security terminal near hydroponics. With a few quick commands, he triggered the false containment breach. Alarms blared immediately, and his comm unit lit up with security alerts. All security personnel report to Hydroponics Section C, came the automated announcement. Containment breach in progress. This is not a drill. Marcus joined the rush of security officers heading toward hydroponics, then deliberately took a wrong turn, doubling back toward the communications deck. In the chaos, his absence wouldn't be noticed for at least 5 minutes, exactly the window they needed. The communications deck was nearly deserted when he arrived, just as planned. A single technician remained at the main console, looking anxiously toward the door as the alarms continued to sound. "Johnson," Marcus barked using his command voice. "You're needed in hydroponics. Potential contamination situation." The technician paled. "Sir, I'm not supposed to leave the comms deck unattended." "That's an order, technician. I'll cover until your relief arrives." Marcus flashed his security override badge. "Go, now." The moment Johnson was gone, Marcus moved to the QCA terminal and began bypassing the security protocols. His hands flew over the interface, inputting his clearance codes and initiating the specialized quantum link that would allow interstellar real-time communication. "Come on," he muttered, watching the progress bar slowly fill. The QCA required immense power to establish a connection, and each second felt like an eternity. The door to the comms deck slid open, and Marcus tensed, ready to explain his presence. But it was Solara who slipped inside, her movements quick and graceful. She'd reverted to her translator disguise collar in place, and hands gloved, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Is it ready?" she asked, rushing to his side. "Almost," Marcus replied, keeping his attention on the terminal. 30 more seconds to establish the link." The progress bar completed, and the QCA hummed to life, its holographic interface shimmering into existence above the terminal. Solara immediately stepped forward, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease. She inserted a small crystal from her pocket into the reader, some kind of Rylan data storage device. Encrypting the transmission, she explained, her voice tight with concentration. "This will mask its origin and destination from Alliance monitoring." The holographic display pulsed with light as the message was encoded and transmitted. Solara watched, lips moving silently, as if counting the seconds. Marcus kept one eye on the door and the other on the ship's security feed he'd pulled up on a secondary screen. "They're finishing the hydroponics check," he warned. "We have maybe 2 minutes before they realize something's off." "Almost done," Solara replied, her fingers still moving across the interface. "The quantum entanglement is establishing their message sent." The holographic display flashed green briefly before returning to its standard blue. As Solara removed her crystal, the comms deck door slid open again. This time, it was Lieutenant Park, second in command of security, with 2 armed officers behind him. "Holt," Park said, his voice cold. "Step away from the terminal, you 2 liaison." His hand rested meaningfully on his sidearm. Marcus's mind raced through options, each worse than the last. His gaze met Solara's for a split second, enough to see the determination there. "Park," Marcus said, calmly, shifting slightly to place himself between the security team and Solara. "There's been a misunderstanding. I was just showing Solara the communications protocols as part of her cultural exchange program." "Save it, Holt." Park raised his weapon. "Commander Vega received an alert about unauthorized access to the QCA. Hands where I can see them, both of you." In one fluid motion, Marcus drew his own sidearm and fired, not at Park or his team, but at the door control panel. The stun blast shorted out the circuitry, causing the door to slide shut and lock. It wouldn't hold them for long, but it might buy precious seconds. "This way," Marcus urged, grabbing Solara's arm and pulling her toward the maintenance access panel at the back of the comms deck. He slammed his security badge against the reader, and the panel slid open to reveal a narrow service corridor. They squeezed inside. Just as the main door began to spark, Park's team was already cutting through. The maintenance shaft was cramped and dimly lit, designed for engineering drones rather than human movement. "Where does this lead?" Solara asked, her breath coming quickly as they half crawled, half ran through the tight space. Engineering sublevel," Marcus replied. "If we can reach the junction point, we can access any deck on the ship without using the main corridors." Behind them, the sound of the door being forced open echoed through the shaft, followed by Park's voice, ordering his team to pursue. The chase was on. They navigated the labyrinthine maintenance system, Marcus leading the way, based on mental maps of the ship's layout. Each junction required his security clearance, each decision potentially leading them into a dead end, or straight into the arms of their pursuers. After what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes, they reached a particularly narrow section, where pipework made progress even more difficult. The distant sound of pursuit grew louder. Park's team was gaining ground. "They're going to catch us," Solara whispered, her silver hair, now disheveled, golden markings pulsing rapidly with her elevated heart rate. Marcus assessed their position. They were trapped. The only way forward required passing through a section too narrow for quick movement, and going back meant facing Park's team directly. "We need to split up," he began, but Solara cut him off by placing her hand against his chest. "No," she said simply. Her violet eyes searched his face, and in them, Marcus saw a decision being made. "There's another way." Before he could ask what she meant, Solara moved closer in the confined space, her body pressing against his in the narrow tunnel. Her hands came up to frame his face, and then her lips were on his warm, insistent, desperate. Marcus froze in surprise for a fraction of a second, before responding, one arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, transcending species and duty, and the danger surrounding them. In that moment, all the tension that had been building between them crystallized into something undeniable. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Solara's golden markings were glowing brightly enough to illuminate the dim tunnel. "I needed you to know," she whispered, "in case we don't make it out of this." "We will," Marcus promised, newfound determination surging through him. His mind cleared tactical options, appearing where there had seemed to be none before. The secondary environmental control room, it's 3 junctions down, and is shielded from internal sensors. We can regroup there and figure out our next move. With renewed purpose, they pushed forward, navigating the increasingly tight confines of the maintenance shaft. The sounds of pursuit faded as they took a series of turns designed to confuse anyone not intimately familiar with the ship's inner workings. 20 minutes later, they emerged into the rarely used environmental control room. Unlike the main engineering sections, this backup facility was fully automated, visited only during quarterly maintenance checks. The walls were lined with atmospheric regulation equipment, and status displays cast a blue-green glow over the small space. Marcus immediately secured the door, using his override codes to lock it and disable the internal sensors. "This will buy us some time," he said, turning to find Solara leaning against a console, exhaustion evident in her posture. "Are you all right?" he asked, moving to her side. She nodded. "Vrylan physiology. We have bursts of energy, followed by shorter recovery periods." Her breathing was already returning to normal, the golden markings on her skin pulsing more steadily. "What now, Lieutenant? We've committed multiple serious infractions of Alliance protocol. They won't simply let this go." Marcus accessed a terminal, bringing up the ship's security status. "They've initiated a Level 2 search protocol. All decks, all sections." He frowned at the screen. "But they're focusing on the shuttle bays and escape pods. They think we're trying to leave the ship." "Which gives us an advantage," Solara noted. "How long can we stay here?" "The room is scheduled for maintenance in 3 days." Marcus began rummaging through storage compartments. There should be emergency rations and supplies. They settled into an uneasy routine, taking turns, watching the security feeds Marcus had tapped into, and resting on the narrow maintenance cot stored in the room. The confined space forced a proximity that, after their desperate kiss in the maintenance shaft, carried new significance. As hours stretched into a full day in hiding, they talked, really talked for the first time. Solara explained more about Vrylan culture, their advanced sciences, and the grim reality of their dying son. Marcus shared stories of his Earth childhood, his rise through Alliance security ranks, and his growing disillusionment with certain aspects of Alliance policy. "Have you considered," Solara asked during one of these conversations, "that your Commander Vega might have been testing you with that order to monitor me, to see where your loyalties lie?" Marcus paused the emergency ration pack halfway to his mouth. "Vega has always been inscrutable. Even as my superior, I've never been entirely sure of her endgame. In royal courts, such tests are common. Loyalty is valued above all else, but the question is always loyalty to what, to whom?" Solara's violet eyes studied him. "You chose loyalty to principles over loyalty to orders." "And you?" Marcus asked. "What were you loyal to when you came aboard under false pretenses?" "My people," she answered without hesitation. "Always my people." During their second day in hiding, Marcus accessed deeper Alliance files using his security credentials, which hadn't yet been fully revoked. What he found disturbed him: partial truths, omissions, and what appeared to be deliberately misleading assessments of the Vrylan situation. "Look at this," he said, showing Solara a classified report. "Alliance scientists confirmed your son's accelerated decay pattern 8 months ago, but the public briefings still cite the original timeline that gives your world another century." Solara leaned closer, her silver hair brushing his shoulder as she read. "And here they've already calculated the mineral extraction efficiency with minimal population interference. They were never planning to save us all." The revelation hung heavy between them. That night, as Marcus took his turn to rest on the narrow cot, he found sleep elusive. The ship hummed around them, the environmental systems, creating a white noise backdrop to his troubled thoughts. He was startled when Solara sat beside him on the edge of the cot. "You should be resting," he said softly. "There's something you should know about me, about Vrylans," she replied, her voice equally quiet in the dim room. "Particularly about those of royal lineage." Marcus sat up, giving her his full attention. "These markings," she touched the golden patterns on her skin, which seemed to pulse in response, "they're not decorative. They're expressions of our genetic adaptability, what made our species successful on a world of rapid environmental changes." "I don't understand," Marcus admitted. Solara took a deep breath. "Vrylan royalty possess adaptive DNA. Throughout our evolution, it allowed our ancestors to survive atmospheric shifts, radiation surges, even poison attacks from rival houses." Her violet eyes met his. "It also allows for something else: interspecies compatibility." The implication hung in the air between them. Marcus felt his heartbeat quicken. "You mean—" "In theory, yes," she continued. "It's never been fully tested with humans, but our genetic researchers believe it possible. Our DNA can adapt to match compatible species." The confession seemed to cost her vulnerability, evident in her posture. Marcus realized what she was truly sharing: not just a scientific curiosity, but a personal possibility. A future neither of them had contemplated until the chaos of the past days had thrown them together. Before he could respond, the terminal beeped with an incoming transmission on a secure channel. Marcus approached it cautiously, checking the encryption. "It's from Commander Vega," he said with surprise. "Directed specifically to us." Solara joined him at the terminal, tension evident in every line of her body. "It could be a trap." "Only one way to find out." Marcus accepted the transmission. Commander Vega's face appeared on the screen. Her dark eyes unreadable, as always, silver-streaked hair pulled back in its customary severe bun. "Lieutenant Holt, Princess Solara, I know you can hear me. I'm transmitting on a secure channel outside official Alliance protocols. Marcus and Solara exchanged skeptical glances. I am aware of your current situation and the reason for it, Vega continued. I want to propose a meeting, just the three of us on the observation deck, 0200 hours. No charges, no arrests. Just talk. Why should we trust you? Marcus asked, though he knew Vega couldn't hear the question. As if anticipating his doubt, Vega added, I have information about alternative evacuation protocols that I believe will interest the princess. And Lieutenant, I have the full report on Operation Stellar Twilight that you've been trying to access. She paused. You have my word as a Vega that this is not a trap. My family has never broken a vow in 15 generations, and I don't intend to be the first. The transmission ended, leaving them staring at a blank screen. What do you think? Marcus asked after a long moment. Solara's expression was contemplative. The invocation of family honor is significant. In many cultures, including my own, such a formal vow is binding. Vega has always been a strict adherent to protocol, but never cruel or dishonest, Marcus admitted. If she's operating outside official channels, she may have her own agenda that doesn't align with the Alliance's public position, Solara finished for him. They debated the risks and potential benefits, weighing their limited options. In the end, the possibility of new evacuation protocols for Vryland's population proved too important to ignore. We'll go, Solara decided, but cautiously. I'll need to look like a translator again. Marcus nodded. I can create a security diversion to clear a path to the observation deck. As they prepared, Solara set about transforming herself back into the modest translator. Using fabric from emergency supplies, she refashioned a simple outfit that would conceal her royal markings. The translator collar was gone, lost in their escape, but she fashioned a substitute from components Marcus helped her salvage from unused environmental sensors. Watching her work, Marcus was struck by the contrast between the regal princess and this resourceful survivor. Both were authentic aspects of her. He realized the duty-bound royal and the adaptable individual. For his part, Marcus did his best to restore his uniform to a presentable state. He polished his insignia with a cleaning solution meant for atmospheric filters and straightened the fabric as best he could. If they were walking into a trap, he would at least face it with dignity. This could be our only chance to change things, Solara said, as they prepared to leave their hideaway. To save my people and perhaps expose the truth about what the Alliance truly intends. Marcus nodded, checking the makeshift stunner he'd constructed from spare parts, not as effective as his service weapon, but better than nothing. Whatever happens, we face it together. The journey to the observation deck required careful navigation through seldom-used service corridors. Marcus's knowledge of the ship's security rotations proved invaluable as they avoided patrols and sensor sweeps. They arrived at the observation deck's secondary entrance at precisely row 155 hours. Marcus checked the readings on his scanner. One life sign inside, Vega presumably. Or a trap, Solara reminded him. Only one way to find out. Marcus entered his security code, and the door slid open to reveal the ship's most impressive space, a vast dome of transparent aluminum, offering an unobstructed view of the stars beyond. Commander Vega stood alone in the center of the deckhands, clasped behind her back as she gazed out at the cosmos. She turned, as they entered, her expression unreadable. Lieutenant, Princess, thank you for coming. She made no move toward them, maintaining a respectful distance. Marcus positioned himself slightly in front of Solara, the makeshift stunner held discreetly at his side. You said you wanted to talk. We're listening. Vega gestured to a small seating area. Please, what I have to share will take some time. Cautiously, they moved to the indicated seats, positioned so they could keep Vega in sight while also covering the deck's entrances. Once they were settled, Vega activated a small device similar to Solara's dampening field. Now we can speak freely, she said. First, I want to assure you that this meeting is not officially happening. As far as Alliance records are concerned, the search for you both is ongoing in completely different sections of the ship. Why the secrecy? Marcus asked. You're the commanding officer. You could have us arrested at any time. Because what I'm about to propose exists in a gray area of Alliance law and Vrylan sovereignty. Vega's gaze settled on Solara. Princess, I'm aware of your world's true situation. The accelerated solar degradation, the inadequate evacuation plans, the mineral rights motivations. Solara tensed. Then you know the Alliance's offer is tantamount to genocide. I know that certain factions within the Alliance have prioritized economic interests over humanitarian concerns, Vega corrected. But the Alliance is not monolithic. There are those of us who believe in its founding principles, true cooperation, mutual aid, the preservation of all sentient life. Pretty words, Marcus said skeptically. But words don't evacuate billions of people from a dying world. Vega leaned forward, her usual reserve giving way to intensity. No, but this might. She activated a holographic display that emerged from the table between them. A phased evacuation plan utilizing the entire Alliance fleet, supplemented by Vrylan's own ships and newly commissioned emergency vessels. 3 years to complete, beginning with the most vulnerable populations. Solara studied the projection, her expert eye assessing the logistics. This could work, but the resources required would be immense, Vega acknowledged. Which is why I've been building a coalition within the Alliance leadership. Admirals, ambassadors, planetary governors who understand that allowing a founding member world to perish would spell the end of the Alliance itself, morally, if not politically. What's the catch? Marcus asked, years of security work, having taught him there was always a price. Vega's expression softened almost imperceptibly. The plan needs a symbol. Something to rally public opinion and force the Council's hand. Her gaze moved between them. Or, rather, someone. Two someones. Understanding dawned on Marcus. Us? How would a security officer and a princess in hiding sway Alliance policy? Not just any security officer and princess, Vega replied. A human officer who risked everything to save innocent lives, and a Vrylan royal who abandoned privilege to fight for her people. She paused, seeming to choose her next words carefully. And there's more. She touched another control, and a new hologram appeared, medical scans that Marcus didn't immediately recognize. Solara, however, gasped. How did you... Ship sensors are more comprehensive than most realize, Vega explained, especially for monitoring the health of non-human species aboard. Marcus looked between them, confused. What am I missing? Solara's golden markings were pulsing rapidly beneath her makeshift disguise. These are biotemporal scans. They show... She trailed off, seemingly unable to continue. They confirm what Vrylan scientists have theorized, but never proven, Vega finished for her. The adaptive genetics of Vrylan royalty make interspecies compatibility possible. She looked directly at Marcus. Congratulations, Lieutenant. You're going to be a father to the first human Vrylan hybrid in recorded history. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical force. He looked at Solara, whose violet eyes were wide with a mixture of shock and what might have been wonder. Is this possible? He asked her. Theoretically, yes, she whispered. But I never imagined so quickly. Vega allowed them a moment to absorb the news before continuing. This child represents something profound, living proof that our species are not just politically allied, but biologically compatible. A new future for both our peoples. The implication was clear. They weren't just being asked to be symbols. They and their unborn child would become living propaganda for the cause of Vrylan salvation. You want to use our child as a political tool, Marcus said, anger edging his voice. I want to save billions of lives, Vega corrected firmly. If that requires leveraging a powerful symbol of unity, then yes. But, her voice softened, the choice is yours. Both of yours. Solara placed a protective hand over her abdomen, where the impossible was now growing within her. What exactly are you proposing, Commander? Full diplomatic immunity for you both. Princess Solara would publicly reveal herself and assume her role as Vrylan envoy to the Alliance. Lieutenant Holt would be officially assigned as her human liaison and protector. Vega's expression remained neutral, but Marcus detected a hint of genuine emotion beneath the professional exterior. Together, you would become the public face of the evacuation effort, living proof that our species' futures are intertwined. Marcus and Solara exchanged a long look, a silent communication passing between them. In just days, they had moved from strangers to allies, to something deeper neither had anticipated. Now, they faced a choice that would alter not just their lives, but potentially the future of an entire civilization. If we agree, Marcus said carefully, I want guarantees, written binding commitments for the full evacuation. No political backtracking once the crisis passes. And my people must have equal participation in all decisions, Solara added, not as refugees, but as full partners in a new beginning. Vega nodded. I anticipated no less. The documents are prepared awaiting only final signatures from Alliance leadership signatures that your public story would help secure. And if we refuse, Marcus asked. Vega's expression hardened slightly. Then I can offer you safe passage to a neutral world, but Vrylan's fate would remain uncertain. I've staked my career on this plan, Lieutenant. Without a powerful symbol to sway public opinion, even my coalition may not be enough. The choices crystallized before them privacy and uncertainty, or publicity, and the chance to save billions. For Marcus, raised with a deep sense of duty, and Solara, born to royal responsibility, there was really only one option. We'll do it, Solara said, her voice steady, despite the enormity of the decision. For my people, for our child, for the future of both our worlds. Marcus took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. Together. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the massive rescue convoy flagship, watching as the first wave of Vrylan refugees boarded the waiting fleet. Beside him, Solara, now officially acknowledged as Princess Solara Telvek Nasreen, Special Envoy to the Alliance, observed the proceedings with a mixture of sorrow and hope. The evacuation was proceeding on schedule, the publicity surrounding their unusual partnership, and the symbolic power of their expected child, having galvanized public opinion across Alliance space. Volunteer ships had swelled the rescue fleet, and temporary housing domes were being constructed on multiple compatible worlds. They're saying the last transport will leave just before the final stellar collapse, Marcus said, studying the latest reports on his pad. Cutting it close but feasible. Solara nodded, her hand resting on the visible swell of her abdomen, where their child grew stronger each day. Medical monitoring confirmed the hybrid pregnancy was proceeding well, Solara's adaptive genetics ensuring compatibility where none should have existed. My scientists have saved the genetic material of our flora and fauna, she replied. Even if the planet is lost, our biological heritage will continue. Through the vast viewport, they could see Vrylan's sun noticeably dimmer and redder than it should have been, signs of the accelerated decay that would within a year see it collapse entirely. The beautiful blue-green world below already showed signs of climate disruption as the failing star's radiation patterns shifted. I never thought I'd be watching the evacuation of an entire world, Marcus said quietly, let alone as the consort to its princess. Solara smiled at the title. In the months since their decision to become public figures in the evacuation effort, they had formalized their relationship, a political necessity that had fortunately aligned with their growing personal connection. Consort liaison, father of the heir, she teased gently. So many titles for a man who once only wanted to be a good security officer. Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders, drawing her closer. I think partner covers it all. They stood in comfortable silence, watching as another transport ship detached from the surface, carrying thousands of Rylans to safety. Each departure was both a victory and a heartbreak, lives saved, but a world slowly being abandoned. "Do you regret it?" Solara asked suddenly. "Any of it?" Marcus considered the question carefully. His career had transformed rather than ended. Commander Vega had seen to that, but his life was unrecognizable from what it had been a year before. He was now a public figure subject to both adulation and criticism from those who saw their relationship as either inspiring or inappropriate. Yet, as he looked at Solara, at the growing evidence of their impossible child, at the fleet saving millions, who would otherwise have perished, the answer was clear. "Not for a moment," he said truthfully. "Duty means nothing if it isn't in service to something greater than ourselves." He placed his hand over hers, where it rested on their child. "And I found something greater than I ever imagined possible." Solara's golden markings pulsed with emotion, a sight he had come to cherish. "There's a Vrylan saying Mavi Sethnatal Vreshka, from endings come new beginnings." Below them, Vrylan continued its slow farewell to its children, while inside Solara, new life, prepared for a world that would span both their heritages. As the dying sun set on one chapter of history, they stood together at the dawn of something entirely new, living proof that love, like the most advanced technology, could bridge any gulf between worlds.